Hello everyone and welcome back to Spoiler Warning with myself, Tom Colohue. Welcome to the show where today we will be discussing an update when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi, an update when it comes to Money in the Bank, and plenty more about big deals going forwards and who is going to be pushed against Ronda Rousey. Naturally, in addition, we will be answering any questions that you might have as well, so strap in, strap on. And here we go with a little bit of news. The big news over the last week has been the WWE making a big change when it comes to Money in the Bank. They have taken the show away from the Allegiant Stadium and they're moving it to the MGM Arena. I believe it was MGM when I last read it. I did double check this. I'm not too familiar with stadiums and arenas, as you guys know. The move is led largely not necessarily by ticket sales. That has been discussed initially by Dave Meltzer. That is not what I was hearing. The WWE were confident they would still be able to sell out by the time we got to the show, but more by long-standing issues that they have with the area, with the stadium, and with certain individuals. There are quite a few people who have been pulled from the actual show, and this is affecting the card, the outlook, and the level of interest from a lot of fans. The WWE very aware that the level of interest is considerably lower than it has been. With this in mind, they decided to make the change so the arena would definitely look as full as possible. It is basically based around a physical appearance, and there were also apparently some long-standing issues with the Allegiant Stadium which don't seem to have been improved. The WWE were trying to get some positives going, but it sounded like there were some serious problems with the stadium itself, preventing them from, making the physical changes to the arena for best use of their setup. They were not able to present a staging area that the Allegiant Stadium were happy to put together. And there were apparently, and I don't know much more about this than what I'm hearing from the one source, apparently there has been some politics as regards the stadium that prevented them from feeling confident that they would have full use of it. So it is a mix of different things. There is definitely something to the idea that ticket sales weren't as strong as they were, but that's not the main reason. Long-standing issues with the Allegiant Stadium that do not seem like they were going to be fixed was a part of it, as well as certain people being pulled from the card. Now I'm going to talk about the people who were pulled from the card, but just before I do that, please do remember that if you're watching on YouTube, where we currently have 25 people watching, please do remember to hit the like button. Since we go live, we had the 2. We have 12 at the moment. If all 26 people click like, that takes up to 26, and before you know it, we have 50 people in here. So please do remember to hit like if you haven't, and subscribe as well. The people who've been pulled from the card initially, Sasha Banks and Naomi naturally have been pulled. They are still not believed to likely be back for Money in the Bank, though there is an expectation that they will be back around that time. The original plan for Ronda Rousey, to my knowledge, was to have 2 matches with Sasha Banks, thus keeping Sasha Banks out of the Money in the Bank ladder match, though Naomi would be competing in it. The ladder match itself will play host to a number of different people, Alexa Bliss being one of them. I still expect Bayley to be back around that time, Asuka and the like. Asuka not expected to be the Raw Women's Champion at that time. With this in mind, there would have been a match between Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks. Now they are struggling to come up with a decent plan for Ronda Rousey with the people available on the Smackdown side. We may start seeing a couple of people from Raw appearing on Smackdown in order to give her a challenge. I would be looking at, for example, Rhea Ripley as a possible contender in that regard. Also pulled from the card who was advertised, Brock Lesnar. From what I can tell, there was not actually a plan in place to bring him back for Money in the Bank. The idea was that they would save the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar rematch, however that may be, for way down the line. There is still a strong possibility that at Money in the Bank we will see Roman Reigns taking on Matt Riddle. That is a match that Roman Reigns wants, and it's a match that a lot of fans want as well. That is the most likely scenario. Roman Reigns, to my knowledge, is still planned to be on the card, even though he's been removed from advertising. Cody Rhodes, who is front and centre in the advertising, will be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, as will Becky Lynch, who has been pulled from advertisements as well. Ronda Rousey is less likely now to be involved, but it is still a possibility that they will give her a new opponent. That is also as regards the future of Ronda Rousey and plans for her. She, of course, has a match later on tonight against Raquel Rodriguez during Smackdown. We will be hosting a watch party, so please do remember to check out the watch party as we go live at 1 a.m. UK time. That is, of course, the start of Smackdown, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So by all means, come and join us for that as we break down everything that happens. Cody Rhodes is there tonight and is expected to be a major part of proceedings. Matt Riddle is the most likely opponent for Roman Reigns. We will see more of him. Randy Orton is not injured. He's just taking time off as he has a limited date contract. One last piece of news that I do have, and it's a bit out of nowhere as it were. I've been asking around as to which former NXT superstars whose non-compete clauses are due to come up soon have the most likelihood and have had the most offers as to where they will be popping up next. Who has a deal basically already in place and who should be popping up on our TV screens in no time at all. The word on the street, as it were, is that Dakota Kai will be wrestling very, very shortly, and that she may have made some friends during her Twitch time who have smoothed the entryway for her going forwards. Right, so let's answer the question. This is, of course, an Ask Me Anything stream. If you have a question, please do remember to go ahead and ask it, and I will answer them as the show goes on. Ed asks the first question, says, "Hey Tom, do you think that the WWE chose to move it, that being Money in the Bank, due to issues the last time they were there, having issues with the cash systems they were having, people not able to buy concessions?" Yes, that is a large part of the problems that they have had, and it's a large part of the reason that they have moved. It is not necessarily the whole picture. There are obviously a lot more pieces to that puzzle, but it is a major part of the picture, and one of the reasons is that these problems that they've been experiencing have not been solved. Spider Boss, welcome, says, "Hi Tom. Naomi's friend yesterday tweeted that Laurinaitis yelled at Sasha and Naomi. I have been reporting that a producer did yell at Sasha and Naomi. That was a report that I got heat for, as it were, from other wrestling journalists who were saying it definitely wasn't the case. It was. It's nice to see someone actually confirm that for me from someone who has proven they do have the inside track, as it were. There are other things that I've reported, of course, as regards Sasha and Naomi, that have come true as well. In fact, basically everything I have reported as to Sasha and Naomi has already been proven fact. Sean says, "Hi Tom, great to see you." Great to see you too, mate. And Spiderboss says, "With the lack of women on Smackdown, how is the WWE going to do it for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match? They only need 3 or 4. They may reduce it to a 6-person ladder match instead of an 8-person ladder match, which was their initial plan. They may choose to reduce that number. But there are more than enough people to actually make the match happen. Even if it ends up on the Smackdown side being Raquel Rodriguez, Aaliyah, Natalya and Shayna Baszler, that's still not that bad a field, let's be honest. That is still an option. And then, of course, on the Raw side, you've got Becky Lynch, Asuka, Alexa Bliss, Rhea Ripley or Liv Morgan. You've got lots of options on the Raw side. They may choose to top load it. I don't think someone from SmackDown is going to be winning anyway, let's be honest. There is, of course, reports coming out that Sasha Banks and Naomi are due back relatively soon. Now, this is something that I want to discuss, so I'm glad you asked that question, Spider-Boss. Sasha Banks and Naomi have been in discussions with the WWE about returning, or at least one of them has been. They have not necessarily come back to the fold as of yet, but discussions are said to be very positive and things are said to have been moving in the right direction. This is not a make-up, as it were. This is not a contract renewal. This is very much a case of, okay, we may come back, we may see out the rest of our time, and we may just put this behind us and move on from there. The WWE essentially, with the consistency of the attacks on the character of Sasha Banks and Naomi, they may open themselves up to lawsuits in general, or Sasha Banks and Naomi may decide that it's not worth the hassle and just see out the rest of their time. That seems to be what is a plan at the moment. The WWE do want them back in time for the Money in the Bank ladder match to add more star power to it, but a huge part of that will be Sasha Banks losing to Ronda Rousey in the near future. Hey Si, how you doing, mate? Spider-Boss says, looking at the card for Hell in a Cell, is it me or does it look like a Raw pay-per-view? It looks like a Raw pay-per-view, but to be fair, there are times last year, particularly this time last year, that every pay-per-view looked like a Smackdown pay-per-view. Yes, it's Raw top-heavy, but they are struggling to build compelling stories on the Smackdown side right now. The top story is a mixed brand story rather than just a Smackdown one, so they are struggling with things to do in this regards. A lot of the stories they were planning, we were already supposed to see the beginnings of Sasha Banks versus Ronda Rousey, for example, is simply not on the cards at the moment. Simon, welcome, says, hey Tom, gone from watching TK official AW Double or Nothing 2022 pay-per-view preview unrestricted podcast to you. I appreciate that. That's a very good step over from Tony Khan to myself. I mean, I like to think I have similar success, stature and looks, but I don't feel I do. But what can you say? Jonathan Rodriguez says they should have never booked a stadium show for the 4th of July weekend. Always should have been in an arena and on Sunday the 3rd and not head-to-head on the 2nd with UFC. Now, I'm very, very happy, particularly from a UK perspective, to have Saturday pay-per-views, but they did go head-to-head with UFC, which is something that AEW has struggled with in the past, and they did book it for that 4th of July weekend. They have their own struggles and their own issues, as I did mention, and I only have one source in this just to be clear. It is a case that there may have been some backstage politics at hand between different competing companies to try and get them on a smaller scale. Sean says apparently Zelina Vega suffered an in-ring injury that required surgery. She's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks, which would put her return around SummerSlam, and she's also supposed to receive a push upon her return. This is from Mike Johnson. Thank you, Sean, for both that report and for reporting where you got that from. This would do damage to the WWE's plans for the Women's Tag Team Championship tournament. As I mentioned and has been confirmed now by Dave Meltzer, they are looking at 4 teams in the tournament, just the 4. They are pairing up people such as Dana Brooke and Tamina. They have reached out to other names such as the Bella Twins, Lita, Trish Stratus and the like, including Beth Phoenix as well. But at the moment it looks like they're just planning to push the people that they have. That would be rebuilding their division. That would be rebuilding the entire tag team division. They did need Zelina Vega for it. We may end up with Carmella and Aaliyah at this point. Noob says, hello Tom, how are you doing today? Well, firstly, hello yourself, Noob, welcome. And secondly, doing very well, thank you. I've had a very, very good week, and I'm looking forward to a very, very good weekend. As part of that, though, I do have to say at this point, there will not be a spoiler warning on Sunday night. There will still be a gaming stream earlier on Sunday afternoon, my time, Sunday morning in the US. There will not be a spoiler warning in the evening on Sunday. I simply have other plans at this point in time. Omega says, Tom Colohue, welcome Omega, how you doing, mate? Simon, I've just shared the Sasha Banks news. I'd imagine you asked this before that, so by all means, if you've not yet heard it, catch up. Spider-Boss says, no Brock, no Sasha and Naomi, no wonder why fans aren't so interested in Money in the Bank. Interest will continue to peak closer to Money in the Bank. The WWE believe that the match itself, as in the ladder matches, will attract enough interest. This is of course true of shows like the Royal Rumble, but there are question marks over whether or not it's the case for Money in the Bank. Sean says WWE announced a rematch between Ronda versus Raquel for Smackdown tonight. It is also a championship contender match, and I do believe, and have mentioned this time last week, that that's the match we were going to get at the pay-per-view. I expect what's going to happen is that there will be some form of distraction, and Ronda Rousey will end up losing by countout, or disqualification, or something in that design, which gets us to the match at the pay-per-view. Would be very good for Raquel Rodriguez, but not so good for Ronda. Simon says, what's the point of having a world champion if he's never ever defending the belt? Roman hasn't defended the titles both for 3 months now. It's a very fair point, a very fair question, and shows a lack of planning on the WWE's part. They've very much exposed the situation. Well, thank you very kindly for sending the raid over Inside the Ropes, who sent over a party of 5. Thank you kindly. Welcome raiders from Inside the Ropes to the show. My name is Tom Colohue. I'm currently talking about Money in the Bank, Sasha Banks and Naomi, and I'm an Ask Me Anything stream. There's a bit of a backlog on questions, but by all means get your questions in now and I will endeavour to answer every single one. When I say Ask Me Anything, I will try and answer every question there. And Nelson Bro says, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch and Ronda were on the poster, but apparently got pulled. What's the reason? Now, to my knowledge, not all of these have been pulled from the pay-per-view. I still expect we're going to see, for example, Becky Lynch on the pay-per-view. it would be very confusing. Thank you very much for the follow Inside the Ropes. It would be very confusing if we have someone the level of Becky Lynch and they don't even put her in the actual ladder match. You need star power, and with Sasha Banks and Naomi not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination, they are missing something pretty strong if they don't include those particular names in the Money in the Bank ladder match. The lack of Ronda Rousey is a bigger question mark for me. Now, it looks like we're heading towards Ronda Rousey versus Raquel Rodriguez at the current pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell, the next one up, but there is no guarantee going forwards. Now, as regards Roman, I still expect he'll take on Matt Riddle. I've been talking about that one for a couple of weeks now. Brock, I don't expect to see and didn't expect to see anyway. Simon says Sasha could be back around that time, maybe in the ladder match. Yes, if she decides to be. Jay Quick says, hey Tom. Hello Jay Quick, great to see you, mate. So it says, Tom, do you think the move to the MGM, a big part of UFC history, is shots fired at UFC or just born out of necessity because of the stadium issues? I think with the amount of issues that they've had and the issue that they were currently undertaking, it was more of a necessity to move to that particular arena. It's an arena that's been very good to them in the past and one they've never had issues with. Spider-Boss says, no Sasha and Charlotte. I wonder what is next for Ronda Rousey. I expect Charlotte will be back to some level of Money in the Bank, maybe just visible after the match or in some degree in that regard. But I think with Ronda Rousey, SummerSlam, we will see another Charlotte Flair match. Austin Palmer says, it's a brand split over. I've been hearing rumours. The brand split is not over at this time. The WWE believe that Smackdown needs some help, and it has been giving Smackdown that help. It believes it even more so now that they've lost probably their second strongest draw on the show, Sasha Banks. Zama says, any news on Ember Moon, Candice, Johnny Gargano, Cesaro's Pro Wrestling futures? Cesaro does have offers on the table, considerable offers, but it looks like he's choosing to take a sabbatical at this point in time. Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano both also have offers. They are choosing much the same. As regards Ember Moon, I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there, but I'm confident people aren't going to pass up that chance. No worries, Jay Quick. Absolutely no worries. Hopefully we can liven you up and improve your mood a little. Bailey says, hello Tom, welcome Bailey. With Stephanie taking a leave of absence, this is the first time there is just one McMahon working at WWE since the late 1990s. Is Nick Khan looking to find someone outside the family to do this job moving forwards? Yes, he is. They are not entirely sure how long the break will be for Stephanie. If the break is for less than a year, Nick Khan will hold the post and the position. However, if the break is longer than that and Stephanie McMahon chooses not to return, Nick Khan will be open field, and it will be someone from a very high level company that has made a lot of money that suddenly finds himself with the WWE. Hey Michael, how you doing? Spider-Boss says, women of Smackdown for Money in the Bank, Raquel, Natalya and Shotzi. Also Shayna, who you haven't mentioned. Aaliyah, who you haven't mentioned. There are people, and there are enough for a Money in the Bank ladder match. They're not necessarily having all the star power that you might expect, but they are there. Michael says, so you think they'll both just finish off their contracts and move on? I think that's a strong possibility. I definitely think that is a likely situation. It depends if Sasha Banks and Naomi choose to push back and go in hard on this one, but they would need to go very hard in order to actually push out of this. Bro says, I might be the only one kind of disappointed by the walkout. I was actually looking forward to Bianca Naomi. I think it would have been a good match. That doesn't necessarily mean that we know what actually happened in its entirety backstage. We have bits and pieces of information, but we have no guarantees, and I'm just not willing to commit to a side on this one because we don't know all of the details. Michael says, according to Naomi's friend on Twitter, it was Johnny Ace telling them to shut up and wrestle. This is, of course, according to the person who also shared a lot of information before it got out, and a lot of that information has been verified, though not all of it has. A number of wrestling journalists, including myself, has verified the information coming from that person, or at least verified that person is who that person say they are. Now, I did speak about producers going on a rant. A particular producer, I wasn't able to name them. I didn't have that information, but I did speak about that in my video immediately after the walkout the next day, and stand by that. Brian says, is Riddle Reigns still planned for Money in the Bank? To my knowledge, yes, Roman Reigns has been looking for it, and he's been teasing it in interviews, so that's quite fun. Hello, Inside the Ropes. Thank you very much for the raid, and thank you very much for waving. He knows his bro says CM Punk is becoming world champion by Sunday. Disagree. And Twitter will moan about it because a 40-plus-year-old won the gold. Disagree on that one as well. Wait, this isn't WWE, so it's okay. There you are. There you are. I don't believe CM Punk is taking the win. I still believe the next AEW champion is MJF. Simon says, my heart wants Punk to win. My head thinks Hangman will retain. I believe that Hangman Page will be retaining as well. We are 20 minutes into the show. We have plenty of questions left. I will continue to catch up with them. But if you are currently watching on Twitch, please remember that you can hit the follow button and get a notification every time we go live. Spoiler warning takes place Mondays, Fridays, and Sundays. So it won't take place this particular Sunday. I am taking a break this week. At 10 o'clock UK time, that is 5 o'clock Eastern time in the US. We also do a full watch along of Smackdown and pay-per-views, as well as if you're on Twitch, we get some gaming streams as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to hit the like button. We currently have 34 people watching and 18 likes. If we can round that up, you'll see the viewership skyrocket as well. So please do remember to hit that thumbs up. If you're able to and haven't as well, pardon me, please remember to hit subscribe. We are currently on 1154 subscribers, so I'm looking for just free. If we can get it to 1157, you'll see it tick up to a 1.16k, and that will be a very good day indeed. Sean says, Jimmy Smith said in his podcast he thinks WWE wants to control the narrative with Sasha and Naomi. That is exactly what they want. That is exactly what they have largely succeeded in doing. A large part of the reason they put the statement out is so that it would go out to mainstream media, and mainstream media would pick up on it and essentially continue to apply pressure. They have done so very successfully. Michael says, Naomi's friend also mentioned that Johnny Ace lied to Vince about something, but he didn't specify. Now, I will continue to dig on this. I don't have further information. Just going to hold my hands up and say I do not know any more on that, but I'll continue to dig. It may just be a case that I'll send more emails to WWE, which they'll largely ignore, but I can try. Bro says, the SmackDown Women's Championship honestly has been treated badly, if you ask me. Since the title swap, it's been an afterthought and always overshadowed by Raw. The title swap did take place only a handful of weeks ago, so I can't really say that. Ronda Rousey did declare herself a fighting champion. By and large, she has been that. We're, of course, going to get the second match in a number of weeks tonight on SmackDown, so I disagree personally. Spider-Boss says, since Ronda has no opponent, can they make Ronda versus Becky? They could. I don't believe that they will. They are saving that for WrestleMania next year. Sean says, your thoughts on the stipulation MVP picked for Hell in a Cell? I cannot remember it. Can people remind me, please, of what stipulation MVP picked? I cannot remember what the situation was. Simon says, I was really shocked it's Britt versus Ruby in the Owen Hart tournament final. Not Tony in it. Tony was a clear fave to win it. She may have been the clear favourite, but clear favourites don't tend to win in AEW, and I think that's a very, very good thing. Hector says, I'm not an AEW fan by any means. I'm so hyped for Adam Cole versus Samoa Joe. It's my early prediction, but I could see some wonky stuff happening with Jay Lethal. When it comes to tournaments, I do just genuinely love tournaments because they just set up so many different possibilities and different things that can just go a little bit wild and a little bit crazy. I have absolutely no issue with any of that, and I'm very glad to see things like that happen. So, anywhere I can make that happen, I will definitely want to. Hector says, okay, for match of the night. Yeah, Adam Cole Samoa Joe is a known quantity in that we know it's going to be great. So why not? No, Wiggly, not feeling anxious at all. I'm not that into football. You did, Wiggly, and congratulations. I hope you're looking forward to it. Kervin says, rumours said CM Punk has some backstage heat in AEW. I have seen, in my years watching wrestling, just being a wrestling fan, hundreds upon hundreds of reports. This guy's got backstage heat. Have you seen? This guy's got backstage heat. I don't ever believe reports like that. I'll just sit and wait for something much, much better, much, much more consistent, and much, much more proven and reliable. Spider Boss says if Sasha and Naomi return soon, do both return or just one of them? That is completely up to the individuals. They are, of course, no longer the tag team champions. If one of them decides to return and the other one does not, that one will return without them. Bro says, honestly speaking, Tom, they really don't know what they want to do with the double champion route. Will they just defend 1, 2 matches, 1 match, 2 belts, 2 matches, 2 belts? I'm confused. I'm confused as well. Now, I have been reporting shortly after WrestleMania, I first reported that the WWE, to be blunt, making it up as they went along. Completely making it up. This was confirmed, I believe, 2 days after I first reported it by Andrew Zarian of Mat Men Podcast and The Wrestling Observer. So it was nice to see that confirmed. They are very much making it up as they went along. And I did report about a month ago about the undisputed bloodline, that the bloodline this time last week, or in fact, that the bloodline would, I didn't specify the time, I just knew that it would happen, win all of the championships that they were going for and hold them up high. They are the undisputed bloodline, but the WWE did have something of a plan there. When they first mentioned that they were going to have a match featuring a unification, it was because they planned to do the unification. It was just a case of taking more time and buying more time, spinning their wheels, as Megan likes to say as well. Larry says, hello everyone, 7 of clubs. Now go and find a pack of cards, pick one. You'll see I'm right. Lot of work, mate. Lot of work, but I like that you come in and immediately confuse me in every possible way. Bigley says, I must have missed when Cesaro left WWE. Yeah, he just ended his contract and left. He was essentially, he went out on his back to a few people. The WWE were fully aware and so on and so forth. It made perfect sense. John says, Tom, do you think the triple threat match for the Raw Women's title will main event Hell in a Cell? I do not, personally. I think a rematch for both sets of tag team championships will be the main event of Hell in a Cell. I don't necessarily think it'll be inside the cell. I hope it will, but I do think it will main event. Michael says, I get notifications on and take screenshots of Naomi's friend because he deletes his tweets. Good man. He says the misinformation on here is crazy. Oh well, checks are still clearing, the sun is still shining, people's mental health are very well intact and doing amazing. I think the juicy stuff. Fair enough. I mean, if checks are still clearing, I'm surprised by that, but we are where we are with that one. I mean, the WWE do owe the back pay for the work that Naomi and Sasha Banks have done, but we can't say for certain that's what's actually going forwards with that. Spider-Boss says, if Sasha and Naomi return, are WWE still wanting to bury them? If they are leaving the company, there will be a burial. If they are continuing with the company, there will not be. That is the situation. If they are consigned to leave, if they are just working out their last few months and then leaving, there will be a burial. That is tradition in wrestling. There is tradition in WWE. Wrestlers like to go out on their back just as much as the company likes them to do so. Wiggly believes that Punk will win and drop soon to MJF. I don't believe it. I think MJF versus Hangman is just a much more compelling story. Sean says, are you going to do a watch along for NXT in your house? Probably not, no. From what I can tell and what I believe, that's a normal NXT, just on a Tuesday. I have work the next morning. I can't really afford to do so. Bro says, prediction time, just for fun. Ronda versus Raquel ends in DQ because Shotzi or Aaliyah. Gunter will chop Ricochet so bad I'll watch it on repeat. Also, who do you think will be on the KO show? Now, I agree with pretty much all of those predictions. As regards the KO show, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Because the most likely scenario is it's going to be someone like Cody Rhodes. Because he's there as well. But then there are so many people over on the SmackDown side. I'd be thinking Sami Zayn, to be honest. And Owens can just poke fun at him for being Roman's lackey. Maybe Shinsuke Nakamura, and that somehow ends up in an ambush by the two of them. But we'll see how it goes. Ah, right, Michael, I get you. Sly says, I saw Punk tweet out a dig at the move to the MGM. Love the guy, but he needs to not do this. It looks small time, and an AEW main eventer giving WWE his attention plays into their hands. Not a good look. It's not the greatest of looks, but he is entitled to express himself however he chooses, of course. I'm not a big fan of the backbiting and the attacks, but I can't say either side is better than the other as regards it. It's a lot more prevalent right now on the AEW side because they just go nuts for it. Kofi says, what's going on with Zelina Vega? According to Peter Insider, she has picked up an injury. We'll have to wait and see how that plays into it. Sometimes injuries that result in surgery don't automatically mean the surgery happens yet. Gotcha, bro. Title swap in 2021. Sean says, MVP picked a handicap match. That is the easiest way to extend the feud. So we still have the exact same thing we've seen. It's got Bobby Lashley versus Omos. But Omos will essentially be working on MVP's behalf to soften Lashley up enough that MVP can walk in and have one of those moments, much like Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman way back when. MVP pinning Bobby Lashley will be a very big moment. But it does mean this feud is probably going to go from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Don't want it. Gonna happen. Michael says, Double or Nothing will be fantastic. I'm excited. I am probably going to check this one out, but I will probably not do it live. Just to be very, very clear on that one. Probably won't do it live. Yes, Wiggly, I'm reading the Twitch comments. There's just quite a lot of comments, so it's taken me a little while to get through them. While I am where I am, please do remember, if you've not done so yet and you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. That little thumbs up can make a massive difference. And subscribe if you haven't. If you're watching on Twitch, please remember to follow as well. Also, I'm just going to pop over to the Twitter side while I have a moment, and I'm going to retweet anyone who has quote tweeted the announcement tweet, sorry for all the words tweet in there, that the show had gone live. That went out about half an hour ago. So I'm just going to check my notifications here, see if anyone has retweeted it, quote tweeted it, and I will be sure to retweet your quote tweets. No one has quote tweeted it as of yet, but thank you for all the people who have liked and retweeted so far. Bro says, no, Tom, I absolutely disagree. I think CM Punk wins the title. MJF beats Punk for the title, winning the rubber match. I like the dichotomy you've got there, the rubber match as it were, that MJF gets that one over on him, but I do think that just extends the feud, and I don't think that's the way AEW really do things. Hector says, Tom, can you believe we're approaching the 3-year anniversary of The Fiend's in-ring debut against Finn Balor at SummerSlam 2019? The Fiend had a shelf life, and I spoke about that at length at the time. The Fiend was never going to last long. Didn't expect him to be fired, and that's why it didn't last long, but I never expected it to really last long. It doesn't surprise me that The Fiend did not survive 3 years, I'll say that. Hello, Moxie. We the ones indeed. Consider yourself acknowledged. Salmon says, so the poster of Sasha and Naomi being advertised on the June 24th episode of Smackdown from Texas is legitimate. They could be back by then. The poster is legitimate. There is a conversation going on between Sasha Banks, Naomi and the WWE as to when they are likely to return. The WWE hasn't necessarily given them ultimatums. They said to them, if you don't return, this is the situation. There is no do this or else. It is simply, this is the situation now. Spider-Boss says, I hope to see Sasha back soon. It would be cool if Sasha and Bayley returned on the same night. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Now, admittedly, they would immediately lose a tag team championship match, but I'd be okay with that. Kervin says, WWE unify both WWE champions and both tag team champions. What about the women's champions? There is no intention at this point in time to unify the women's championships. No intention whatsoever. Ed says, in your house on a Saturday. Colour me intrigued. We may well do that then, Ed, if you're interested. D. Freeman also clarifies it's on a Saturday. Thank you, guys. I'm not a regular NXT watcher. That's why Ed's my go-to guy. So I'm certainly interested. Thank you for letting me know. Sean says, who will be Kofi and Xavier's tag partner tonight? I am very confident that it is going to be Drew McIntyre. Megan teased it during the watch-along last week, and I think it makes perfect sense. Wiggly says, where are you watching the game tomorrow? I'm back in Manchester. No love for Liverpool there, I'm sure. Wish you told me earlier, mate. I might have popped over to you. Instead, I will be watching it at home. I actually wouldn't have been able to pop over. It's my brother-in-law's birthday, and I want to be here for him. I've got him a... wait, one sec. Let me just grab it. So I have a running joke with my brother-in-law, where I introduce myself as his second wife. That is, in fact, how I introduce myself to my current partner, who we refer to on here as Tiny Arms, as my brother-in-law's second wife. So I got him this card. It really hams it up more than I expected. Maybe a little over-aggressive in the end because it keeps going. It just keeps going. There are just pages upon pages of this stuff. It keeps going. So, like, if he didn't get the joke, there'd be issues. Thankfully, he do. Spider-Boss says, I hope Sasha returns soon and doesn't leave. I don't want to see Sasha leaving in Moxley style. I don't think anyone particularly wants that. I don't think Sasha wants that either, to be completely honest. But we'll see how it actually goes. If she does leave in the Moxley style, she'll have a Moxley style career, I guarantee you that. Michael Winston, welcome, says, who do you think comes out the winner between Bobby Lashley versus Omos and MVP? I believe that Omos and MVP will pick up the win, with MVP being the one to pin Bobby Lashley. Kevin says, Ronda versus Shayna for SummerSlam makes sense. It does. However, I don't think they will do it. I think that will be after the fact. Sai says, did they ever clear the confusion on the Money in the Bank Mania stip? I lost track. They did not. They have referenced it in no way, shape or form. Simon says, Sasha Banks' character Costa Reeves got confirmed for The Mandalorian Season 3, starting streaming on Disney Plus on February 27th, 2023 from Star Wars Celebration Week. That may be why we're starting to see advertisements featuring Sasha Banks back in the WWE. Also says her Costa Reeves body armor bodysuit was also on display next to the other Night Owls costumes and other Star Wars character costumes from the movies, TV shows at Star Wars Celebration Week. Well, I hope you're able to check that out, Simon. I hope you have a great time. Whether that you're able to get there, as it were. Wiggly says, AEW is 3 years old. What's the high points, the low points? What does the future hold? Low points for me have been some of the early issues, such as the throne being smashed up. I just don't see that as necessary. Also, the entirety of the women's division for the past 3 years. They just haven't tried. They haven't tried. High points, anything involving MJF, anything involving Chris Jericho, the return of CM Punk, the arrival of Jon Moxley, Moxley versus Omega, a hell of a lot of great wrestling matches, Daniel Bryan, the Forbidden Door, as it were, Jay White. There is a lot of very high points. Sean says, Nikita Lyons' injury a storyline. She is pulled from the breakout and replaced by Tiffany Stratton. Does Roxanne still win, or does Tiffany surprise everyone? It is not a storyline. Nikita Lyons, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, is injured in real life, as it were. Tiffany Stratton is unlikely to pick up the win. I think Roxanne is now more likely. Alyssa, welcome, says Brandy Rose returned to SmackDown, teasing it on Twitter. She did not tease it. She was making reference to her daughter, who was in the ring at SmackDown this week. As Bro clarifies, love Brandy's tweet teasing a return on SmackDown. She did clarify, though, that it was in reference to her child. KJ says, hello, Tom. Hello, KJ. Spider-Boss says, what do you think about Toxic Attraction's run in NXT? I think it's been fantastic. I think it's been brilliant. I think it's been overdue as well to just have a dominant team in NXT again. The last real dominant person was Shayna Baszler, and that was a while back in the women's division. Even in the men's side, no one's really been dominant for a while. It says, I may not be available, but I'm sure Astrid might be interested in jumping in. We can certainly have a conversation about that. Maybe soon, Wiggly. I'll get in touch. Sean says, will Judgment Day versus Liv, AJ and Finn happen at Hell in a Cell? All the pieces are there. All the pieces are there, and I think it should happen. However, I don't necessarily think that it will. I think they'll drag it out a little while longer, especially if they are going to 6 women in Money in the Bank. They could have that match at Money in the Bank and have a marquee draw power match without featuring any of them in the actual Money in the Bank ladder match. So I would like to see Damian Priest, AJ Styles and the like in that Money in the Bank ladder match. They have the people. They have more than enough people to be in that ladder match without needing them. So I think they will drag it out a little longer, and what we'll see is the tag team match with Liv Morgan balancing out Rhea Ripley on the outside. That's what I think we will see. Can't guarantee it, naturally. Megan says, first of all, hello. Oh, you did that first. That's so nice and rare. Sorry, I'm late. New Star Wars game was announced, so I had to do the write-up. Absolutely, you go for it. Thirdly, if it's not true, then I take no responsibility for the response. Absolutely. You suggested it. You said it was likely. I have been convinced. It is my opinion, and that opinion came to mind because you said it. You go ahead and you dodge whatever responsibility you want. Alyssa says, really hope Liv Morgan wins. Deserves so much better. I very much think that Liv Morgan is in a fantastic position right now. She's had the feud with Becky Lynch, which went brilliantly, really elevated her. Now she's paired up with Finn Balor and AJ Styles. She's across the ring from Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest and Edge. This is huge. This is massive. I really cannot overplay how big this is for Liv Morgan to be in a ring with these people. It will be a huge benefit to her, especially if she's traveling with them at all, getting to have... If I could have a conversation with AJ Styles and say, how do you do this? How do you do this? I would learn so much. And I'd imagine so will she. Michael says, I honestly don't think Sasha or Naomi want to leave. Things just got very heated very quickly and mistakes were made. If it was indeed true that John Laurinaitis was shouting at them, I don't blame them for walking out. I really don't. That was the other thing. When I first was talking about this live, we spoke about the fact that they walked out during the show. Now, a lot of people at the time were very confused and thought they had gone out before the show. They did not go out before the show. They were early in the show, but they were during the show when they left. This has thankfully been clarified. So this, as regards when they left, regards to starving out that the WWE was planning, and also, of course, the report about the producer shouting at them, all three of those things have been proven to be absolutely true, or at least have other sources clarifying on them. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Spider-Boss says, I'm not a big fan of Toxic Attraction. I hope all of them lose their titles. I don't see that happening because they are easily the biggest thing in the women's division at the moment. Bro says, the Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey boat may have sailed. Still excited, but I don't know if people care. When the moment comes, people will care, because that is also the moment that Ronda Rousey will turn heel and Becky Lynch will turn face. So WWE will stop pushing them in the opposite directions and will swap them over just by letting the crowd swap them over. Then people will suddenly care. John says, SummerSlam feels like there will be a lot of WrestleMania 38 rematches. Very possibly. The WWE do like to do that. Thank you, Ed, for clarifying that Lions is pronounced like lions. Wiggly thinks the high point of AEW is Hikaru Shida. Well, you've not had a high point for a while then, mate. Simon says, my dark horse match of the night is Thunder Rosa versus Serena Deeb for the AEW Women's World Championship, with Thunder Rosa to retain. Thunder Rosa is someone that the WWE are very interested in, particularly at this point, and I'm very, very excited for more to come. Hey Jermaine, I have not watched the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi yet. There is also another TV show that I'm going to be watching first and foremost. It's at the point of getting to it. Larry says, I put anything involving Chris Jericho as a low point, but we all want different things in wrestling, I suppose. And I think that's fair. Spider-Boss says, after watching NXT 2.0, I think WWE tried to make Tiffany Stratton into some sort of Charlotte 2.0. Possible, though I will say Raquel Rodriguez is going to be their Charlotte 2.0 for a little while. Bro, I will not be reading that, bro. What I will say, though, is that certain characters and personalities in wrestling clearly use certain aspects of their personality and appearance. If they choose to do that, I'm less annoyed by reading things like that. Simon says, Kyle O'Reilly versus Darby Allin and Sami Kazarian versus Men of the Year, Paige Van Zandt in an intergender 6-person tag team match could be late additions to the pay-per-view card. You're selling it to me, I've got to say. Alyssa says, really hope Liv Morgan wins Money in the Bank, deserves more respect. And Kevin says, New Japan apologised to Kota Ibushi. They did. I'm wondering if we'll be able to put all of this behind us. I don't want a New Japan without Kota. I definitely don't want a G1 without Kota. Not a chance. Spider-Boss says, I wonder if AJ and Finn and Liv will ever pick a victory against Edge's stable. I'm confident that they will, and I'm confident that Rhea Ripley will be the one taking the pin. John says, why did Vince give up on Shayna? Not sure. Shayna was, of course, supposed to be winning the Money in the Bank. They were extending the feud of Becky Lynch. It looks like it was just bad timing, to be blunt. Sean says, should Liv Morgan be in the Money in the Bank match? Not if she can get in a match with the 6 people that I before mentioned. Sid, welcome. Says, I really like your channel. I'm glad I found it. Keep up the great work and thank you. Thank you kindly. I really do appreciate that. That's a very nice thing to say. Simon says, Anna Jay versus Jade Cargill for the DBS title could also be a show stealer for the pay-per-view. They have great matches in the past. You're basically, at this point, you guys are listing every match and saying, this will steal the show. That sounds like AEW. Jermaine says, hey Tom, how is WWE going to make it up to Sasha and Naomi to bring them back by June 24th? They are not. There is no plan to make it up to Sasha and Naomi. The WWE are of the opinion that Sasha and Naomi need to make it up to them, and they've made that very, very clear. Simon says, any news on the actual length of Sasha's contract, despite all the rumours out there at the moment? No news whatsoever. I've not had anything confirmed as regards Sasha Banks' contract length. KJ says, imagine John Laurinaitis yelling with that dry-ass people power voice. That's not actually his real voice, just to be clear. Larry says, I think I've had a talk with AJ Styles about wrestling. We would both benefit equally from the experience. Larry, you are a confident man. And Noob says, Liv Morgan teaming up with the founding members, the Bullet Club, was pretty much a good thing for her. It was a fantastic thing for her, and it will do great things for her career globally going forwards. Michael says, I love how there's 3 women's matches on Double or Nothing. They need to book every champion not named Britt better. Britt Baker, to my knowledge, not currently a champion. Sean says, who wins the triple threat women's match between Asuka, Becky and Bianca, and who takes a pin? Bianca wins, Becky takes a pin. KJ says, I wouldn't say Liv deserves so much better. She's in a great spot. She has been since the start of this year, starting with Becky. Also, she's still young, so she has time to win gold, but like Tom said, she's involved in a story with Edge and AJ. Now, I did report right after her feud with Becky Lynch that the WWE were viewing Liv Morgan as a future women's champion and were planning to push her hard in 2022. I don't think you get much harder than this outside of the actual belt. Sean says Alexa will be live on her Instagram tonight with her husband raising money for the Saving Kiwi Foundation, which is a non-profit organisation that helps rescue abandoned and abused animals. Would she have to get approval from WWE to do this? Good question, one I'm not entirely sure about. The fact that it's not for profit, as it were, makes me think it's unlikely. Also, Alexa Bliss may be one of those people who believes that it's better to ask forgiveness and permission. Just as we start to head into our last collection of questions, there is only about 10-15 minutes left of the show. Please do remember, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. It really does help the growth of the channel. And subscribe if you haven't already. I'm currently trying to get to 1157, and I only need 3 subscribers to get there. Just 1157, and we will, just 3 more subscribers. We'll have the 1157. It will show up at the bottom as 1.16k subscribers, and that'll let us know that we've made it. Jay says, Tom said Becky wants to lose to people now, so I think she was actually added to the match to take the pin. And I do very much believe that to be the case, yes. KJ says, Stratton, in my opinion, has it. She can really be a star, great talker, and gets better in-ring by the week. Same with most 2.0 women. One of the good things to come out of so many people being fired, and there were good things and bad things naturally, is that it meant that the training is much more focused. The wrestlers get a lot more time now with their trainers than they did before, and this has been a massive benefit to them. Hector says, Tom, do you expect the UK pay-per-view Clash at the Castle to sell out, considering it's the first pay-per-view in the UK in a very long time? Yes, absolutely. It will sell out in no time at all. I promise you that. Bailey says, your thoughts on LA Knight's call-up and rename? It started flat. It did start a little flat, but they were introducing him and introducing the name change. Once we start to see him actually do things, it'll be a little different, but I'm just honestly quite excited to see where we go with it. Michael says, Dakota Kai should be free in 2 days. Very excited to see where she goes. Me too. Wiggly says, I wonder if WWE sent Man City a title belt again like previously. To my knowledge, they haven't yet. Triple H is usually in charge of that. It's certainly a brand officer thing, so Stephanie McMahon was also involved in it. Those 2 people are not involved at the moment in that regard. Sean says, did you see what Will Ospreay said about WWE superstars? I did not. I saw what he said about Kenny, but not WWE superstars. Bro said, it's such a shame that the AEW women's division has so much talent but are booked badly. Thunder Rosa has won the title and been on Dynamite for a combined of 20 minutes. The title match was in March. I'm not entirely sure when the title match was, but yeah, she's not been on often enough. Spider-Boss says, if AJ and Finn and Liv ever get a victory against Edge's stable, would be on SummerSlam. I don't think it will take all the way to SummerSlam. I think they're likely to get the win at Money in the Bank, personally. KJ says, speaking of Liv, my dream scenario would be for Liv to win Money in the Bank, Bianca drops the title to Rhea, then Liv cashes in on her. Certainly would be a good scenario for Liv Morgan fans. Rhea Ripley, of course, has already been a champion, so it's not like it's ruining the first championship reign. I'd be okay with that. And then formally launch the feud then. They can keep them apart by having them in the mixed tag matches. That works for me. Sean says, why would Becky want to lose to people now? To give back. When a wrestler loses a match, one of the phrases that are used backstage is doing the favours. So a wrestler who's losing is doing a favour to the wrestler who's winning. Whole lot of people have lost to Becky Lynch, and she looks at it as they're doing me a favour. She wants to give back to those individuals, so that's the plan. Becky Lynch at this point in time very much wants to give back to those who've given to her. That's why she's going to be losing a few more matches going forwards. Alyssa says, do you think Sasha Banks and Naomi come back as heels? No, not at all. Fans won't let that happen. KJ says, don't think she needs to ask. She's done it before. You mean Becky? Can you clarify that for me, please, KJ? Spider-Boss says, I'm happy for Liv Morgan. She's had a great year of cool matches with Becky and Sasha. She's got a great year ahead of her for the rest of it as well. Bro says, Becky winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, teasing Bianca and Ronda, and eventually choosing Bianca at SummerSlam but loses a match while building the Ronda match is a pretty good thing for her character. It would, however, if that actually happened, end up being a situation where both people win, choose to cash in at SummerSlam, and lose. If that's the plan. Larry says, from things said on Impact shows, I think AEW is going to let some of its wrestlers turn up at Slammiversary for Impact's 20th anniversary, which would be nice. It would be. I expect Matt Hardy to be involved. Sean says, when does Liv Morgan's big push start, like you said, and does Liv win her first championship? This is the push, mate. This is the push. She's working with Edge, AJ, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Rhea Ripley. This is the push. And it's a big one. You can be pushed without championship belts. When she wins her first championship, I think that will be next year. Kura says, hi, welcome, Kura. Sean says, Will said the... yes, sorry, I did see this. Thank you for reminding me. Will said the superstars in WWE aren't wrestlers, they are actors. Every wrestler is an actor. That's how it works. There is acting involved in wrestling. I mean, Will Ospreay should know that. He's an actor, gymnast, and wrestler. Kevin says, Tony Storm says the original idea for SmackDown's pie angle was for her shirt to be ripped off. I don't doubt her. Simon says, absolutely loving Liv right now. Her character's really vibing with me. Hope she wins Money in the Bank or Sasha, my picks. Please, she gets to team up with the Bullet Club versus a Judgment Day faction. They have a lot of very good options for the Money in the Bank briefcase. And I'm happy to say that there aren't very many bad options. Larry says, acting is a massive part of wrestling. If the wrestler isn't a good actor, then they're a shit wrestler. And that I absolutely agree with. Spider-Boss says, Sasha lost against Becky in 2019. Becky lost against Sasha in 2021 on SmackDown. She remembers. She does. Alyssa says, why did WWE move Money in the Bank to the MGM? I did talk about this at the top of the show, so I'm just going to clarify what I said and recap it slightly. There are a number of issues, including issues that they had with the stadium previously that have not been addressed. Ticket sales weren't as strong as they liked, but they were still confident they would get the sellout. Also, they've had to pull some names from the card, and the WWE don't believe that they have the necessary star power for that stadium at this point in time. KJ says, Tom, I was talking about someone asking, would Alexa have to ask about the Instagram live? She did before and raised money. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. She did indeed. As I say, she is more likely to ask for forgiveness and permission. Kervin says, so Becky wants to put over talent. What about Charlotte? Also going to put over talent too. As I have said previously on a number of occasions, the four horsewomen will not be the focus going forwards. Not all of them. They will be doing favours. They will be falling slightly into the background. We have literally seen this already in action. It amazes me that no one has already reported on this and that it hasn't been confirmed elsewhere yet. But it will be. It will be. Maybe like 6 months after I first reported it, it will be. Sean says, if Sasha went to AEW, would she have to change her name? Yes. KJ says, Tony getting her shirt ripped off is bad. Sure, but she has no OnlyFans now, or did. Yes, but consent matters. That's the difference. OnlyFans she chooses to pose without a shirt on. Having her shirt ripped off is not a choice on her behalf. Very different scenarios. John says, I'm still waiting for Charlotte to put over Rhea. That day will likely come, just not yet. Sean says, does Liv get her win back against Becky eventually? Probably. Becky doesn't forget, but they are not in any way engaged with each other at this point in time. Hector says, Tom, did you see Jeff Cobb and the Great O'Khan interrupt the FTR tag match on Dynamite? Do you see that being FTR's match at Forbidden Door? Would make sense, and Jeff Cobb is great as well. I think that would be a lot of fun and opens the door for Will Ospreay as well. I do think that will be the match that we get, because otherwise why would they even be there? Spider-Boss says, could we see Brock returning before SummerSlam? Yes, I expect Brock Lesnar will be there by SummerSlam. And to be honest, given who we've got available at the moment, I think we may see Brock Lashley again. Unless that keeps going with Omos. Brock losing to Drew McIntyre is also an option. And Sean says, knowing how Theory has said he's a big John Cena fan, possible we see the match. Well, if you listen to Brad Shepard, and to be blunt, while Brad Shepard has got a lot wrong, he has been reporting a couple of things that have paid off recently. He did say that John Cena will be back in June. I keep track of these things, because otherwise, how can I tell you to listen to this person and not this person? We got to keep track of these things. Michael says, Ricky Starks is one of the most underrated in the world. He's a freaking star. Also a fan of my work, and there is evidence of that out there. And Spider-Boss says, I'm still wanting Charlotte to put over Sasha. Charlotte putting over people would be interesting. The day will come. We are very much not far away from it. As I've said, the Four Horsewomen are not the prime focus of the women's division going forwards. And that's going to be our show. Thank you everyone for all of the not a bad idea, that Lesnar versus Omos versus Lashley. Not a bad idea. Thank you everyone for joining us, everyone for asking questions, and everyone for hitting like, subscribing, and thank you to Inside the Ropes for the raid and the party of 5 that joined us. Thank you everyone. Please do remember that we will be live for Smackdown for a 2-hour watch party starting at 1 a.m. UK time. That is, of course, 8 p.m. Eastern time in the US. I was not prepared for that one, you'll see. I will not be live for Spoiler Warning on Sunday, but we will still have a gaming stream on the Colohue Gaming channel and this Twitch channel at 1 p.m. UK time. That is, of course, 8 a.m. US Eastern time on Sunday. Until then, thank you everyone for joining me. Thank you everyone for keeping me company. Thank you everyone for your time. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. And I'll see you all later on today.